And welcome to Understanding Photography with Kim Ayres, episode 264. Today we're going to be talking about the notion of selective colour in photography and editing. Is it a really cool effect, or is it the spawn of Satan himself? So stick around, this is what we're going to be talking about. If you happen to be watching live, then leave a comment. Let me know where you're from and let me know what you're up to. Let me know what the weather's doing, and we can make a start. Yes, so welcome to Understanding Photography with Kim Ayres, episode 264. So yes, today is all about selective colour. We're going to have a lot of fun exploring this idea. In the meantime, like I say, here we are live on YouTube. If you are watching live, then leave a comment. Even if you're not watching live, you can leave a comment, but I just won't be able to respond to it in real time. I can see we've got a couple of people in already, so couple of quick shout outs and hellos. April says greetings from a mostly cloudy Long Island, New York. Susan says hi from Kakubri. We're delighted to say it has brightened up considerably from a miserable start. And yes, Kakubri is just 9 miles down the road from Castle Douglas, where I live in southwest Scotland, and it really was a miserable morning, but the sun seems to have come out just now. Maybe it'll stick around for the hour. Lisa joins us and says hello all from Maryland. Colorado views image. That's Marilyn says hello everyone from a cold but sunny Colorado. John joins us from a cold Ohio with cold rain. Robert Schaefer says here for the fireworks, brought my popcorn. And Janet says hi from a snowy Mississauga. That's in Canada. First snow of the year. Wow, okay. So it still seems to be away from snow at the moment. It's still got the odd leaf on a tree up here. Not so many, it has to be said. So, welcome, yes. Quick update on the smug points situation. So, smug points are accumulated by the amount you interact with these podcasts. So, if you happen to be watching live and you leave a comment, then you automatically gain 5 smug points just for turning up. Then, if you stick in a photo for feedback, you get 25 smug points. If I set a challenge and you put in an image for that, you get 10 smug points. So plenty, and then those who accumulate the most amount of smug points then get to choose the topic for the following month. Now, this month's topic is, and challenge will be about selective colour, and this becomes because Robert Gulick from Texas set he won the most smug points for October, and when I asked him, okay, what would you like me to talk about? What could be? He came up with the idea of selective colour. Now, for those who've known me for a while, or been watching these podcasts for a while, you'll know that selective colour is not exactly my favourite topic or editing technique. It tends to be one of these that I feel is very cliched, overdone, and done usually in the wrong place. And so this was sort of something of a challenge, really. Could I show how you can make selective colour work? And certainly, so part of this podcast is going to be about what selective colour is, part of it's going to be about why it doesn't work, or when it doesn't work, and part of it will be about how you can sort of sometimes get away with it. But if you are going to go for it, then you have to be really aware of why it works and why it doesn't work. Now, I might have avoided this altogether, except for the fact that there are a lot of online photo sites, competition sites like PhotoCrowd, ViewBug, Guru Shots and what have you, where every day or every week they're putting up several different kinds of topics for competitions and challenges, and selective colour is one of these that does crop up from time to time. And practically everybody who regularly watches these podcasts belongs to one or more of these sites. So knowing how to, if you are going to go in for these challenges, at least trying to make sure you've got enough knowledge on your side to be in with a reasonable chance, I think is a good thing. So that's really what we're going to be talking about. A couple more people have joined us. Nicola joins us, says, hi Kim, everyone from a sunny southwest Scotland. And Nadia joins us from Fife, where it's a bit wet. Right. So yes, we've got sunshine in places, parts of the world, rain in others, as always, and of course snow in Canada as well. Right, so selective colour. Yes. What is it? Okay, tell you what we'll do. I think the thing is selective colour is one of these things which really kind of came to the fore. I would say there's kind of two things that happened. One was Photoshop and other editing programs suddenly made it very easy to turn something to black and white, but then mask off a little part of the image so that you could just bring the colour back in. And suddenly there was this explosion, particularly in wedding photography, where you would have black and white photo of the couple, and then she would be holding a red rose. And it's black and white except for the fact that the rose was red. And for a lot of people, this seemed like a very kind of romantic idea. And that splash of colour was so new, so vibrant. We were completely used to this idea of black and white photos or colour photos. But this was black and white photos with a splash of colour. How cool was that? And then the other thing which I think really changed the world on this was Schindler's List, the Steven Spielberg movie about Oskar Schindler, set during World War II. And there's a very iconic, famous scene where the whole film is shot in black and white. But there's a bit where he's looking out across the kind of ruins of the town. And you can see this little girl running through the streets with a red coat. And it's the only bit of colour in the whole film is the red coat on this little girl. And you see, and he's watching her, and it just draws your eye completely. What would have otherwise just been a black and white picture, you wouldn't really have noticed it. And then later in the film, spoiler alert, you come across the remains of the red coat. So clearly the child has died, and it's one of these powerful tug the heart moments. So that bit in Schindler's List then became absolutely iconic and kind of really thrust this whole idea of selective colour to the fore. So I'll tell you what, let's show you kind of how it works. Let's just start with a basic what is selective colour. So what I will do is let's swing over to Photoshop. I've got here just a town scene. This is Whitby in North Yorkshire, or coastal Yorkshire, for anybody who's looking up. What's the comments here? Oh, Robert Gallick from Texas has joined us and said howdy all from a sunny and mild Texas. So yes, if any of you absolutely hate selective colour and really wonder why I'm doing that, Robert, he's the guy to blame. Lisa says, I remember that scene. April says, oh, I forgot about that scene. And Marilyn says, thanks for sharing the history, Kim. Okay, cool. So what we have here then is we have, like I say, a town scene, in this case, Whitby. Looking down. Now, what we could normally do with this is we could convert it to black and white. Let's just do a little quick black and white conversion here. And now we have a black and white town scene. Okay, but over here on the right, we've got a mask. So if I go to my little brush, and instead of, I've got the black and white here, and the way masking works is wherever it's white, we've got the effect. But if I paint black over it, it's like it makes it transparent. It will reveal what's underneath. So if I just turn that around, I will just reduce the size of the brush, but I could paint out the black and white here, and we could just have that kind of orangey red roof or something like that. Yeah, so what? You know, I make a paint in some other roofs here, but you know, another roof here. So we've got a black and white photo with tiled orange roofs. Yeah, so what? Okay, but if let's flick that back over and paint the white back over like that. But essentially, if we're talking about that red effect, what I want to show you is if we go down to, say, this person here, who was wearing a red jacket or had a red backpack or something like that, and I flip over here and we just get her coat and backpack. Now, the point is that when we go back and look at the whole photo like this, what happens? Your eye just goes bam, straight to that point. You kind of almost ignore everything else that's in the picture. Your eye gets drawn completely to that spot of red colour. Okay, and this then is the way that selective colour is working. Your brain is constantly looking to filter out difference, detail, things which are considered to be important. Now, we as photographers, aspiring photographers, practicing photographers, when we take a photo of something, we take a photo of a scene, we take a photo of a person, we take a photo of a set of objects, and what we're trying to do is convey some kind of narrative, convey some kind of mood, feeling, story. So we see a picture of a leaf, we want to convey something about that leaf to somebody else. So everything we select in the way that we do our photography, from the camera settings, your shutter speed, your ISO, your aperture, through to your lighting and your composition, and then your editing, is all about drawing the viewer's eye precisely to the narrative that you want to convey. Now, in this case, what happens is we look at this picture of the town and our eye gets drawn straight to that person with the backpack. So you can see exactly how this is working. But the question is that what the whole story is about? I mean, let's go back to a colour scene here, right? This, as it works as a photo, it's not about a person with a red backpack. It's about a street scene. We've got people about, people moving down a little narrow road. We've got these wonderful red tiled roofs, and we're looking across, and we can see into the distance. We can see across the water here, we've got more houses, we've got the buildings, we've got the church spire. So we've got a whole kind of higgledy-pickledy old town feel built on English northern coastal town thing going on here. And that's what the story is. And if we were to put it in black and white, if it's just black and white, then it's a black and white scene. It makes it feel a bit more timeless age. But as soon as we put that spot of red in, everything draws our eye straight to that point. Now, if this is the point of the photo, if everything is about this particular person wearing this red coat, so fine, if this happens to be your partner, your daughter, your girlfriend, whatever, who's walking along with that, then, and you're, for your own sake, wanting to say, hey, look, this person was on this street, look at that, well then fine, maybe. But we don't know this person. The fact that they're walking with their back to us with a red jacket on is a so what. It's not the story. So what's happened here is the selective colour has been incredibly powerful at drawing our eye to a specific place on the photo, which isn't important, which is not part of the narrative. And so it's destroyed the narrative of the photo. And this really is what happens so often with selective colour, which is why I tend to have something of a bee in my bonnet about it. A couple more comments. What have we got here? Robert Gallagher says, don't blame me. I want to know how to do it right. Robert Schaefer's laughing. Meg says, hello, everyone. A couple of people are saying hi to Meg. Okay, so to give you that, so that's the way that, this is the way that it's often done. So let me show you another example then of the kind of thing I see all the time that just makes me want to weep. Okay, so if you take a look at this photo, so this is a photo of Status Quo, big band throughout the 70s, 80s, and I managed to take this, my original is a colour photo of Status Quo in the last year that they played at Palmerston in Dumfries, and I think later that year Rick Parfitt died. But the thing is that I was down there, I took a photo of them playing. Now, this is a very, very typical kind of selective colour. Somebody's gone, oh, look, he's got a green guitar, select the colour, put it all in black and white, show the green guitar. Right? Now, I would never, ever, ever put this photo into a competition. I've done it here purely for illustrative purposes, I should say. The point is that when you are there watching Status Quo live, rocking all over the world, the fact that he's got a green guitar is completely irrelevant. What you're doing is you're watching a pair of iconic guitarists, this band, all the history with it, all your childhood memories of the music, everything that goes along with it is what it's about. A green guitar is completely irrelevant. And by drawing all the attention to the green guitar, you've destroyed the narrative. It's no longer an interesting photo about these two and Status Quo and the whole music scene. And so this comes back to the why I tend to get really can't be doing with it, because you see this kind of thing too often. Okay, let's try something else here. So this little fun kind of photo, just done for, I think some wee challenge on Photograph or something, I can't remember, inside the fridge or something like that. So I thought I'd have a bit of fun, stuck the camera on a 10-second timer inside the fridge with a flash, boom, goes off. Now, again, it's the kind of thing where, let's just open that with Photoshop for a moment. So try that again. There we go. And again, what people would typically do is go, well, okay, what do we want here? The ketchup bottle is just part of the scene, but the pepper is what it's all about. The person in the photo is looking at the pepper. So let's just kind of select that yellow pepper. Let's go to create black and white, and that's automatically masked it. So if I can press Control or Command I can invert it, and we have instant black and white photo. And so you might at this point say, well, okay, Kim, this is what the photo's about. The photo is about the yellow pepper and the person looking at the yellow pepper. But yes, it is about the person looking at the yellow pepper in the fridge. And it's not just about the yellow pepper. It's about the relationship of the yellow pepper to the person, to the fridge, to everything else. And so the photo, as was taken, like this, is about everything that's going on in the photo. And actually the prime narrative is, okay, let's just grab a pencil here and just show that the prime narrative is this bit, right? It's not just the pepper, it's the eyes looking at the pepper. That's the key part of the narrative. And then the supporting part of the narrative is the fridge door, okay, where we've got milk and we've got ketchup, we've got some chutney or something like that. And then we've got a little bit of shelf here, a little bit of shelf coming down here. So these bits here are then the kind of secondary supportive role in the pepper. But the primary bit is this first bit. So if we go back to this and then we just show up the pepper, then what we've done is we've shifted the balance so that the eye just gets drawn to the pepper, and the person holding the pepper, the person looking at the pepper, is now secondary, is now being relegated to the same status as the ketchup and the milk and the chutney, right? It's becoming, the point is that the selective colour is absolutely overwhelming. It grabs all the attention and it pretty much destroys any other kind of narrative that's trying to get in, okay? So any form of subtlety is just completely lost. There's nothing subtle about selective colour. What's it? Oh, yeah, no, I thought there was more comments going on. It's just more chat with Meg. Okay. So let's show something else then, another idea that often happens. Let's just close those two for the moment. And so what if we take something like this photo here? So we've got woman eating ice cream, second ice cream in her hand. And there's various bits of colour around. She's got this amazing blue coloured hair. She's got this wonderful red coloured glasses. There's a nice splash of red, like probably strawberry or raspberry syrup on the ice cream. She's got this pink coat, but then there's also bits of blue in the sky and the sea as well. Surely then this is something of a selective colour delight. So again, let's go to black and white and see what happens when we do a little bit of selective colour. So I'll get my brush tool, got it already sitting on black. So what if we select her hair, right? So now we've got a picture of somebody with blue hair. Is that what this photo is about? Bearing in mind that the selective colour is the bit that grabs all the attention. Is this what this is about? No, not really. Actually, it's taken us away from the narrative. Or we could select her pink coat. So let's just go, oh, it looks slightly more purple in this, but just do this roughly and see, does this work? Does this add to the narrative? Now, this whole scene is all about her coat. Is that really what the scene is about? No, it isn't. Okay, now what? Oh, Lisa said, select the glasses. Okay, let's try that. So now we select the glasses, probably one of the most common things you could do. So now what happens? Well, now the picture is all about her heart-shaped glasses. But is that really what this story is about? Just about her heart-shaped glasses? Not particularly. It's one aspect of the story, but it's not the whole story, and it's not necessarily the key story. Okay, well, what if we selected the ice creams then? Yep, so April's come in, said the ice cream. So now we select the ice cream. Okay, so now it's a picture of ice cream. But is it the whole story? Is it the most important part of the story? No, not really. Because the point is that there's no one single aspect which is what it's all about. This picture here is all about the relationship between the different elements. So what we have is, yes, she has an ice cream, but she doesn't have one ice cream, she has two ice creams. Okay? And at this point, you don't know whether she's got holding one for a friend who isn't there, who's out of shot, or whether she's just gone, sod it, I'm having two ice creams. But she's also on a beach, but she's wearing a slightly thicker coat. So this beach is obviously maybe slightly more of a kind of a, it's a colder scene. It's not height of summer. She's got bright blue hair, says something about her personality. She's got these heart-shaped glasses, which again maybe says something about her personality. So you've got her personality, you've got questions about her personality. Is she the kind of person who just enjoys two ice creams rather than one? What's she doing on a beach in the winter? Is this where she lives? Is she on holiday there? There's a whole bunch of questions. There's a whole narrative element going on with this. And any one aspect is just contributing to the whole. It's not about just the glasses. It's not about just the ice cream. It's not just about her hair. It's not just about her coat. It's not just about the beach. It's about how all these elements interact with each other. And this is the really important thing to understand. It's about the relationships between the different elements. And when you just pick one of those elements, you essentially destroy the relationships between all of them. Okay? So, okay, let's try something else then. Here's another kind of one where, so what we've got here, a Doctor Who TARDIS sitting at the end of a garden. So Susan will probably know this, might recognise this. This is in Kakubri, down that garden. Goes down to the bottom. Oh, before we get there, what's that? Robert says, this reminds me of my shadow skateboarder photo, which was not black and white, but had a little colour in it and naturally distracted from the narrative. Yeah, that would be a good point. That actually, if you've got a skateboarder and it's about the rider on the skateboard, if you just selective colour one part of it, you're going to ruin the relationship. So to come back to this idea then with the police box. So again, what we can do is we can go, okay, we've got this blue TARDIS sitting at the end of a garden. Maybe what we could do, and it is about the blue TARDIS. So let's select the TARDIS. Just select the blue here, something like that. This is only going to be very rough. Obviously, it would take a bit more time with it if you were doing it properly, and maybe got to get rid of the little green leaf there. And again, we can go to select black and white and then invert it. So essentially now what we have is, let's just get rid of that little bit of green there. But again, how much is this really enhancing the narrative? And I would say that it's actually kind of destroyed the narrative again, because it's not just about the blue box. It's about the fact that the blue box is sitting in the garden. Oh, Susan says, Colin's garden. Yep, that's absolutely right. What makes this a little bit more interesting is the fact that this police box is sitting, and it's got the green of the trees, looks like yew tree, I think, actually, possibly, around it. It's got the little brown earth around it. It's got the little bits of ivy. It's sitting in a garden where you wouldn't expect to see it. And when you just go blue, when you just say, here's the TARDIS, then that's, again, all you see. It relegates everything else to be unimportant. The rest of it is not worth looking at. And so therefore you lose the relationship aspect between the TARDIS and the place that it happens to be in. Where else can we go with this? Now, I think I was going to... Okay, we can look at this. But at this point, I think you can see what's coming. Okay, we could pick any one of these sheds, the red, the yellow, the green, the blue, selectively colour, and we end up with a so what. I don't think I'm actually going to waste time doing that, because I think hopefully by now you should be starting to get the sense of what's going on. So what about something like this? We've seen this kind of thing plenty of times. So here what we've got is we've got this wonderful old postbox. Now, for anybody in Britain who knows that, so GR is George reign. So what we're talking about here is, and it's not even George VI, this is George V. So we're talking about Queen Elizabeth's grandfather, or current King Charles's great-grandfather. So this postbox came out, it's going to be at least 100 years old. Okay, that is bright red, painted the bright red of the postbox. So very common selective colour option is to select this. So fine, we can select the red here. Again, I can go black and white, invert, and we've now got our red postbox on the wall. And it's standing out. The thing is, it was standing out anyway. And when you've got the colour photo, it's not just about the postbox. It's about the fact that this postbox is stuck in an old wall. We've got this old Victorian sandstone building, or well, building with sandstone on it, and the wonderful colourings and patternings of the lichen that's built up over the years. And it's the sandstone and the building behind, and the fact that this postbox, rather than sitting on a pole somewhere, or is actually just embedded into the wall, which is, you tend to find a lot of much older, it's only the older postboxes that tended to do that. It was almost like a kind of a community offering, that this house would allow a postbox to be placed on it. Into the wall right by its entrance, because it was the point that this would have been done. This house was the last one in the town. Now, since then, more buildings have been added on to the end of this street, but at the time this house was built, this was the last house on the street. So if you happen to be leaving the town in your horse and cart and wanted to get your post put in, you would have stopped at this last house and put it in. Or if you were coming into and it was the first house, you would have put your post into it. So actually, the fact that you've got the building, you've got the colours, you've got the little number 49 even on the side of it, are all interesting parts of it. And the red is kind of acting as like a natural selective colour anyway. Your eye goes straight to it already. But because there's other colour in it, you look at the other parts of the photo and sort of get a sense of supporting narrative, that there are extra narratives going on. But again, if we purely choose the red, then what we're saying is the rest of it is more or less unimportant. Okay. So this, yeah, you can, hopefully you're kind of seeing where I'm going with all this. So, what about then? Okay, so you've heard my moans, you've heard my rants, and I'm probably not finished with them yet. But rather than it's just being a nag, let's say, where might it work? Now, I'm not going to say guaranteed that it always works, but where do you need to start going with something like this? So what I'll do here, let me show you a different picture here. And again, Susan's going to recognise this because this is down in Kakubri, just down the road. Let's flick over. And what we have here is the Kakubri Bridge. And the bridge, for a while, for a few months, was closed. And basically what's happened, this is an iconic bridge in Kakubri, crosses the river, and it's one of the main entrances. You've got two key roads, or three key road entrances into Kakubri, and this is one of them. And then recently the survey was done and it realised that the bridge wasn't capable of taking the amount of traffic it was, and they closed it. There's been huge political outcry about it. They've now reopened the bridge, but only partially. There's weight restrictions on it. There's a one-way system now with traffic lights at either end. There's all sorts of controversies as there's supposed to be a 3.5-ton weight limit, and then you get people who are trying to drive 7-ton vehicles across it, getting stuck in bollards. You're not allowed to bring trailers or caravans, and there's still people trying to get past. And anyway, there's a whole soap opera going on around this bridge. So when we take a look at a picture like this, actually the key thing about it is we've got the bridge and we've got the road closed. Now, this happens to be, I've taken on the blue sky and a little bit of reflection of the sun on here. But actually, how much of the blue sky, if I take this now, let's just kind of select this sign here, and we'll go to black and white, and then Control Command I invert. Missed that little I there, so paint that back in. Now, there's another bit of this, which is actually, if you're going to make a black and white photo and colour photo, is to make sure that the black and white conversion works as a black and white conversion. So what I can do while I'm here is I can play around a little bit with the different colours. So what I might want to do is maybe just in the black and white, let me just drag that up a little bit, darken the blues down. Maybe I can darken that sky down just by playing with the blue and the cyans here. And now that's really kind of increasing the drama of it. Maybe what I might also want to do even is, let's just go for a little bit of brightness contrast. Take a little bit of contrast and contrast that up a bit. Brighten it, dark, yeah, something like that. So we're upping the contrast, taking those blues down. And now we've got a sort of slightly more dramatic kind of thing. Now, what I might also do then is these concrete blocks in the foreground, I might darken them down. I might add a bit of vignette to this, might add a little bit of play with the slider. The point being that if I was making a black and white photo out of this, I would want to create more drama with the tonal ranges and the contrasts. So it's not just enough to desaturate and then mask back in a colour spot. If you're going to do it right, you've got to make sure that it essentially works well as a black and white photo with its spot of colour, not just all about the colour. So something like this. Now, yes, we've got road closed. And that's the thing that's grabbing us. But because we've got a little bit more drama in the background, we've got that dark sky, we've got those leading lines that just draw our eye down the bridge, we're using other techniques in our photography to try and grab some of the attention as well, or enhance this notion of road closed. We've got this barrier, we're not allowed to go across the bridge. So you need to be thinking carefully here about the narrative of the story. What's the primary narrative? What is it all about? And is the selective colour adding to that narrative, enhancing that narrative, or just detracting from it? Now, everything up until this point, I've talked about how the colour is detracting from it. But maybe when we're doing something like this, we're starting to get to a point whereby actually this notion of the road closed, the stop here, you're not allowed to go any further, and then you use the drama of black and white, not just desaturating, but making that sky dark, increasing the contrast. Now we're starting to potentially get somewhere where we're bringing a narrative into play, where the selective colour is part of that narrative, but not the only part of that narrative. So I hope that's all starting to make a little bit of sense. Tell you what, let's just have a quick reminder here that if you happen to be enjoying these podcasts and you find them useful, entertaining, informative, then buymeacoffee.com/Kim Ayres is one of the ways you can support them. Now, we also, if anybody happens to be watching for the first time, we've also got a Facebook group, we've got a Flickr group. You can come and join these. If you want to put in images for critique, feedback, or for your challenges, then you can put them in either of the groups. You can also email me, kim@kimayres.co.uk. and send me your images for feedback. Tell me a little bit about where your sticking points are, and I can help. Now, next week we actually have a feedback, no, 2 weeks time we have a feedback session. So you can start having a think about that. But I'll talk more about what's coming up this month at the end of the podcast. Also, meanwhile, if you haven't done so already, like the video. It's always useful if you can click like, and if you want to subscribe, then subscribe. Click the notifications bell so you know when the next ones are coming up live as well. Hopefully YouTube will then tell you. Right, okay, that's the usual bits of blurb out of the way. So where else can we go here? Let's try another one where sometimes what makes a difference is whether the, again, it's kind of backgrounding or kind of what you're trying to do with it. So let me close that for a moment and let me take you to this. Okay, no, not that one. That one, yes, here we go. So here we have a picture of a JCB, a road vehicle, in the car park in Tesco's in Castle Douglas a year or two back when they were resurfacing the car park. Now, as a potential selective colour, it maybe works. We've got this bright yellow against a fairly dull background. Okay, so if I open this with Photoshop. Now, quick thing here is trying to select it with our selection tool when there's quite the yellow spread about a bit is a little bit more complicated. So a quick way of doing this is if I go up to select color range, then what I can do is I can pick little bits. So I can pick a little bit of blue. You can see here in this little box here, it shows up where it goes white. That's what's going to be selected. But if I click it on the yellow, we can now see that the yellow has been selected, and I can decrease that and just make it very tight, or I can kind of, it says fuzziness here, I can increase that and kind of spread out the yellow, maybe pick up some of that rust. Although what's also happening at this point, I'm starting to pick up a little bit of the green in the bush over there, but that's fine. Let's go with that. So now I've got this, what I can do is I can then go to my black and white and then hold down my Command or Control I, invert, and now I have my yellow patch here. I can use the white, just get rid of that little bit of green over here, flip it back to black here, and maybe if I want, what am I, capacity is 10%, let's go back up to 100. I could even paint in a little bit of the rust. Maybe I want some of that rust in the yellow, get that little bit of the lights on the top there. If I really wanted, okay, let's maybe take that to 50% or something and just take in a little bit of that rust that's on there as well. So now what we've got is we've managed to select our yellow and maybe a couple little bits of rust, and now it's standing out. Now, if you're talking about selective colour, it's kind of working-ish. Now, the thing is if I remove that, the only reason it's working is because in a way the background already is desaturated. This is a dull, overcast day. So there's not a lot we're getting out of the colour anyway. The key aspect of this photo is the digger. And the digger with its bright yellow paint. So actually, if we just have the bright yellow paint and we allow the rest of it to drop into black and white, we're not really losing anything of the narrative. And in some ways, we might even be slightly enhancing the narrative. Now, again, you might want to play around with contrast. You might want to make it a more interesting tonal range in the background. Maybe make that sky a little bit more kind of darker, stormier kind of feel to it. Add a bit more contrast into that sky, I would reckon. Might actually then help to enhance the narrative of this. Okay, so this is one where it kind of works. But the point is, the reason it's working is because it's almost black and white anyway. It's almost, the background is fairly desaturated. Now, if we compare this to a nighttime shot of pretty much the same digger, parked somewhere else, but now we've got the yellow and we've got the blue and we've got the night sky. Now, there's other bits of digger kicking about over here. But what happens here is if we take what is fairly similar kind of shot, but we now do select color range, and we'll go for our yellows again, up that fuzziness a bit, click OK, and then go to black and white, and invert. So now we've got our patches of yellow. We've now got actually this truck over on the right being a stronger blast of yellow is grabbing the attention more. We can colour in a little bit more in this little bit of rust bits here. There's also one over in the background. But what's happened here though is we've lost the way this photo works is that the yellow is contrasting rather beautifully with that deep blue hour sky. And it's the yellow and blue which is really what this thing is about, because that sky is also then getting echoed into the KCR written on the bonnet as well. So this photo is very much about the colour scheme. It's not just about the digger. It's also about the colour scheme within it and that yellow-blue contrast or complement, which is the important part of it. Whereas with this digger, when we were during the day, then actually we've not got to worry about that colour contrast. It is all about this digger. We've not got to worry about other diggers in the background or anything else grabbing our attention. It's about this one. I hope I'm making sense here. Conversation's gone quiet. I don't know whether it's because you're all listening enraptured to what I'm saying, or whether just something's frozen on the computer. But hopefully I'm starting to get some kind of idea across here. Okay, where else then might this idea of selective colour work? Susan says listening intently. April says listening, thinking, and Lisa says because we're learning so much. Okay, this is good, right? At least I know then there are people out there. It's a bit problem when everything goes quiet. You know, the major problem with the podcast, as opposed to if we were in a camera club and I was talking to you, or even sitting in a cafe looking at a tablet or something, is generally speaking when I'm talking to somebody, I can see whether they're nodding, I can see whether they're staring out the window, I can see whether they've just lost their attention entirely and are now busy on their phone while I'm talking to them. Can't see it. I can't see what you're up to here. I'm just guessing that you're out there. So yeah, little comments help remind me that you are there. Okay. Marilyn says, yes, listening. I've not been a fan of selective colour. However, you are putting it in a different light. Okay, well, that's an interesting one. I'll tell you what, something I forgot to do at the beginning was I was going to stick up a poll of how much you're into selective colour. I've kind of missed that boat now because I should have done that before I started talking about it. I might just do a little one at the end. We'll see. Okay, let's show then another potential possibility. Supposing then that we've got a picture like this. Okay, quick photo. You're out with the phone. You're out for a little walk. Cows come over. You manage to capture this one with the tongue up the nose. Now, hang on, what's Janet saying? I've tried a few but never been happy with my results. Okay, now. With something like this, we've got it's black and white and pink and everything else. And you look at it, you see the cow, and then you notice the tongue going straight up the nostril. Maybe you're thinking, maybe you're thinking, ooh, wish I could do that. But let's open this with Photoshop for a moment. And if I turn this to a black and white photo, let's just go black and white here. And then I think with something like this, we will probably want to play with the contrast because it's just got a little bit dull. So let's up the contrast, up the brightness a little bit. And we're making the most of the fact that they are black and white. They're black and white cows in the first place. So actually, as a black and white photo, it's not bad as a black and white photo. You might want to take something like a colour photo like this and turn it into black and white. But there is a thing that with the black and white is even less noticeable about the tongue going up the nose. And even in the colour, although we've got the pink of the tongue here, it's not a million miles away from the kind of pink of the nose of the cow as well. So it doesn't actually, you don't necessarily notice it straight away. Now the question is do you want to notice it straight away? Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you might actually find it quite amusing that people see, oh, there's a cow. And then as a secondary bit after they've noticed the cow, they then notice the tongue up the nose. And that kind of makes the humour that little bit more, has a bit more energy to it because, you know, you've had to kind of work it out a little bit. But if people are scrolling really fast, if you're back to this notion of online contests where nobody's spending 4 seconds looking at this, they're spending a quarter of a second, if you're lucky, looking at this as they're scrolling past, and you really want to get across the humour of the tongue up the nose, then at this point, we actually need to we want to draw attention to it. So if I take my little selection tool and I just select that, we now go back to the black and white, and no, don't want to paint that in. Where are we? There, black and white. And sorry, out. I can paint the pink of the nose back in. Sorry, of the tongue. Now, even then, what I could do is I could take the saturation, hue saturation, and I could just up the saturation a bit and just make that pink just a little bit pinky. You've got to be careful it doesn't move into the realm of completely unnatural. And now we stick in our brightness contrast. Actually, let's done the brightness contrast on the tongue as well. And now what we have is, you can see we've got the cows. We've done it as quite an interesting black and white photo, and we're drawing attention specifically to the part that is the story, which is about the tongue going up the nose. Now, I'm not saying this is world-changing, roll on the floor laughing humour, but it's just it's a brief smile in your scroll as you're going through your feed. You go, oh, tongue up the nose. Oh, wish I could do that. On to the next one, okay? But if we're saying that in essence, that is what this story, the prime narrative, is about, in the original colour photo, you don't notice it straight away. Now, the fact that, like I say, it takes a little bit to notice it can maybe add to the humour if somebody is spending their time looking at it. As a picture of cows on their own, as a black and white photo, it's quite interesting, especially when you've got the contrast. And then the spot colour, bringing the tongue back in, is so under these circumstances, potentially then, this is sort of working in a way that selective colour is working in your favour. And the fact is, the patterning on the black and white cows is drawing your attention to the cows as well. Unlike the situation where, say, like the red coat in the town, or even the TARDIS in the garden, where going black and white has actually removed any sense of any background, because all you do is see the colour. Because of the very strong contrast already here with the black and white on the cows, that's creating a very kind of strong visual image as well, and it's helping to balance out the fact that you've got this spot colour. Also, I think the spot colour is pink rather than necessarily bright red helps a bit as well. It means it's not screaming at you so loudly, but it is loud enough to be able to get the point across. Okay, so hoping then that that all makes sense. Now, that's the other way to go with something like this, is where you go much more graphic design, kind of start thinking certain kinds of advertisements. Now, the cover card that I used for this podcast was a black and white picture of a woman sticking on lipstick. So this is the original colour version of it. Okay, now I think this stands as a colour photo, but it is contrast. It is played with. There's a dynamism to it. I've darkened down a lot of the shadows, and we've got the pinkish of the skin, the yellow of the hair, the red of the lipstick. Okay, now if what we then do is we go to make it black and white. Okay, so this is still maybe an interesting black and white photo. What I might do, again, because I've gone to black and white, maybe up the contrast a little bit, something like that. Because now it's really, as a black and white photo, it's about tone. We don't have colour contrast. Without the black and white, this is about the colour contrast between the red, the skin, the hair, but she's also wearing a black and white coat, and there's a black background. So the colour is an important part of the overall balance. When we remove that colour, we're down to tonal range. So I think we can increase the contrast, something like that, and we can make the darks darker, the lights a bit lighter, and that makes it a more interesting black and white photo. But now if we want to add the red back in, now there's two ways I can do this. I can either go back to the black and white and then essentially paint the lips back in, something like that. Or if I wanted, what I could do is I could actually create a separate layer, select my colour of red. In fact, maybe I want a different colour. Maybe I wanted to have a darker red. Maybe I'd want a red with a little bit of pink or purple in it. But the point is that you could actually choose a separate one. And then if I, out that way, paint over here, something like that, and then I change the layer mode, darken, multiply, colour burn, something like that. And maybe I think colour. But actually, colour's quite interesting. Kind of brings out a little bit more texture. But I think at that point, I would maybe need to go in and sort of tidy it up a little bit on the edges. But this is just a very kind of brief, quick guide. Okay. So whether I'm selecting out or I'm painting on, the point is that at this point here, and why this one works a little bit better than most forms of selective colour is partly is about the fact that her putting on lipstick is a key part of the narrative. So we've got, you know, the lipstick is what's drawing our attention to. But very much like the cows in the last picture, the black and white is very strong. That high contrast, like the high contrast in the patterning on the cows, the high contrast here between the light and the dark is enough to grab the attention anyway. Even without the lipstick, this becomes a dramatic photo. Then we're adding the lipstick, but it is grabbing our attention, but we've got enough else there to still feel like it's supporting the narrative. And this is when selective colour, if you're going to use it, has to work. It has to be supporting the narrative, not drowning out the narrative, and worse still, drowning out the narrative on something that isn't even important. Okay. Lisa says, I was thinking advertising would work better. And April says, yes, that works well with a lipstick. So that notion then of that kind of high contrast. Another option, if you take something like this, maybe, if I go to, let's open this one with Photoshop. Here we've got one of these aerial dancers playing around on one of these kind of long silks. Now the lighting was just all red down below, white lights going up. There's kind of very red, white, blue kind of feel going on here. Now, interestingly, if I put this into black and white, again, we kind of lose something here. We might want to, now I could play around with a slide. Ooh, yeah, the reds, the yellows aren't doing anything. Blues. Again, what I might really want to do is potentially play with the brightness contrast on this. Increase the contrast. If I'm really wanting to draw attention to the woman here, but maybe I want to draw attention to the woman and the silks. So at this point, what I might do is I might, let's take the colour off for a moment, select the silk, something like that. Okay. And now I've got that. When I go to black and white, I can paint that bit back in. Now, this red has become slightly bluey purple up there. So what I could do is, with that red there, is go back in and actually, well, tell you what, let's go on to another layer here, paint the red in there. I don't want it over the legs of the woman. Do something like that, and again change the blend mode to something like colour. Okay, so we now have our silk. So deselect that. So we have something like this, and maybe we put the rest of her in colour, or maybe, well, I see her legs have been selected in the colour there. So we can either paint the rest of her in, which maybe doesn't quite look right. So therefore, actually, what we probably want to do is actually make her black and white as well, because there's enough contrast in her to know that she's there. But you would maybe play around with the contrast. And now what you've got is this slide of red. You've got just this streak of red, and then you notice the woman and the red, and you've got these, again, quite high contrast. Let's go back to boost that contrast. Yeah, that looks much better when we boost the contrast like that. And we're creating this strong contrast with the white lights of the background, which is helping to balance out the red of the silk. And there's enough contrast with the woman there in the lights to make us have our eye attention drawn to that. Okay, so again, I'd hesitate about whether I will put this one in, but I think we're kind of in the same realm. Okay, so hoping then that, again, like I say, that's giving you some ideas. Now, other thing we could do is, okay, how are we doing time? 5 to 4. Okay, I could go on forever with this thing. Okay, I'm going to do another one here, which is where what we can do is sometimes we can take a colour that isn't about a specific spot, but is more kind of spreading out. And what I'm going to talk about here is this photo. So one or two of you may have seen this photo before. And what we've got here is, this was a photo I created for a bookshop in Wigtown. And what we have here is we have Helena, young, interested in astronomy, not astrology, astronomy, stars and everything else. So we had her sitting on the floor. We've got a off-camera flash inside the book, lighting up her face. And at the same time, what I also did was got some pictures from the NASA site, royalty free, where we've got all these stars and constellations, and I overlaid the pictures and had it like that kind of flowing out of the book. So it's got a sort of slightly kind of fairy dust feel to it, only in a kind of stars and what have you way. Now, the thing is with something like this, there's lots of different colour, but if what I do is, let's go to, cancel that, select colour range. And what I'm going to select here is the kind of the yellows, the bright yellows. If you look down in the little corner here, what's being selected? So we're getting the lamp, we're getting the glow, and it's this glow that I'm really after here. So click OK with that, go to black and white, and then click invert. And now what you can see is, now it's not really quite as strong as I would like it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to boost the saturation, because we're now working with a, so what I'm doing here is I'm boosting the saturation on the picture underneath so that we've got a glow. We've got that glow coming up. It's maybe slightly too strong on her face. I'm trying to get it a bit more into the background there. So what I can do, again, with the hue saturation, I could maybe take that down to 40% and just take a little bit off that. And I think that sits slightly better. So now what we've got here is, this is all about the light. And also what's kind of interesting is some of these stars, which have the yellow bit on, are also now actually standing out a little bit more than they did when it was, sorry, I'll tell you what, I'm going to group those together. So when it's just the picture on its own, the stars are there, but you don't necessarily notice them to the same extent. But when we actually go black and white, some of these stand out that little bit more. So here's an option then where you take a colour, and something like a yellow is quite a good one. You might, I've seen ones which almost work on a kind of blue hour street scene, where you take the kind of yellow of the street lights and some of the yellow of the windows. So you just select that kind of slight orangey yellow and then allow everything else to be dark. Okay. So in this case, now this has picked up, because it's gone for the kind of more the lighter tones, we have, instead of just being the yellows, we have got some of the reds in here of the books and her shirt, but playing around a little bit. Basically go in and you would try different options on this, and until you get exactly the right tone that you want. Okay, now it might be that I still kind of probably prefer the colour version, but if you're talking about selective colour, if you're talking about making everything black and white, then again what we've got here is we've got enough shape with everything. It's not drawing our attention specifically to one single spot. Our attention is already primarily driven towards Helena and her book, but we do also have the lamp in the background, and we do also have the scattered bits of light around it. So there's much more supportive nature going on. Now, April says I like it. So this is kind of where selective colour may or may not work. I think ultimately, really what you're talking about is you've got to have a good narrative, and that the narrative has to be enhanced by. Sometimes I will do kind of one last thing to show you here, which is the notion of, if we take something like this, another aerial dancer taking a different time. So she's got a gold suit. There's a lot of yellow light. There's yellow light kind of reflecting up into the rafters in the background. This was taken at Easterbrook Hall for anybody who's interested. Now, what I might do with something like this, again, to select her, I'll tell you what, let's go select subject, see how well Photoshop manages to do that. And yeah, not bad at all, actually. Managed to select the subject, and in fact, looks like it's got the silks as well. So now what I do, if I go black and white, and then again, invert. So now we've got a black and white background. The thing is about the black and white background, it just kind of feels a bit harsh. And what I might want to do is, rather than do this fully selective colour, is just essentially nudge the opacity here so that I don't make it completely black and white, but actually allow a little bit of colour, something like that. So I've got, say, even at 50%. So I've done a 50% desaturation of the background. And that now feels quite natural. And actually, what we're doing here is we're working with the same principle of selective colour, except the fact that we're not completely desaturating. Now, on a selective colour competition, this would fail because there's still enough kind of bits of yellowy gold in the background. But actually, as a balance of a photo, this is something where I think it's worth understanding. By understanding the principle of selective colour, which is your eye gets more drawn to where the colour is, and that other colours and stuff in the background might be detracting, then by just desaturating the background a bit, it helps to draw your eye more to the subject. Whereas if I make this fully black and white, we get the background fully black and white. We get very much into the notion, oh right, they've used selective colour. If we go full colour, this background is sort of grabbing the attention a little bit away. But that kind of 50-50 desaturation is actually helping to draw our attention to the point of the photo that we want the attention drawn to, without setting off the alarms in anybody else's head that you've gone and done something else to it. Because ultimately, when you look at something like this, where you've got the full selective colour, you're looking at it and you're going, oh, is that selective colour? Is it really black and white? Is white? Looks like they've been used. And you're so busy thinking about the editing techniques, you've lost the story. It's a really important part of this, that when you are trying to convey a narrative, the editing should be enhancing the narrative, not detracting from the narrative. Now, for all the reasons like maybe you've picked the wrong colour is one part of it, but a key aspect of this is the idea that you don't want people looking at the edits. If they're looking at the edits, they're not involved in the story. It's like if you're watching a film and an actor comes on and they sort of fluff their lines, or they don't look very convincing, or their makeup isn't on right, or something like that. You immediately stop being involved in the film. You immediately stop feeling like you're in it, and you step out of it, become an observer and go, oh, don't think much of that acting, don't think much of that lighting, that prop looks a bit funny. You're no longer in it, you're analysing it. And that's not what we're trying to do. As photographers, we want somebody to look at the picture and be in the picture. We don't want them to be analysing the picture. And ultimately, I think that's where spot colour or selective colour really fails, is because as soon as we see it, we're aware that we're seeing a particular editing effect, and we start analysing that editing effect rather than being involved in the story. And that's even in the best of the selective colour. But I think if you take that idea of the selective colour just out with photography, just to kind of desaturate where you don't want the eye to go so much, not completely, but just kind of pull the colours back, then it helps draw the eye to where you want it, in the same way that blurring a background a little bit will do the same thing, or sharpening the subject will draw the eye. Where do you want the viewer to look? Okay, you want them to look at this place. What techniques can you use to get them to look here, but not be distracted by what else is going on? Okay, so hopefully then that all kind of makes a bit of sense. So ultimately then, to sort of sum up, selective colour Selective colour is all about drawing the eye to a specific point on the picture. The problem is it is so powerful that it can become the only thing that really anybody notices. And if it's the only single part of the image that anybody's noticing, you've destroyed the relationship of the other aspects of the photo to that part of the picture. And most photos are not just about a single thing, they're about a relationship of that single thing, maybe in relationship to other things, or to the background, or to the colours, or to the energy of something else going on in the photo. So selective colour is it's a scream, it's a yell to the point whereby everything else is drowned out. And there's very few places where that is really what you want. So if you are going to use it, you then have to have a background that can support it. So where you have something like with the cows or with the woman sticking on her lipstick, you've got a very strong black and white contrast already. Or like the thing with the bridge with the road closed, where you enhance that strong narrative, you make the sky darker and more dramatic, you increase that sense of the leading lines. Then you create something which is strong enough to encompass the selective colour. So if you're going to use this technique, you've got to think very strong and carefully about, does the rest of the picture support it, enhance it, or does it detract from it and just make everything go huh? So with that in mind, because Robert from Texas selected this as the key, as November's theme, I'm setting a challenge. So now it won't be 2 weeks, it'll be 3 weeks. November is a 5-Sunday month. So in 3 weeks' time, for November the 30th, we are going to have the Selective Colour Challenge. And this is where we're going to see whether you've been listening to anything I've said. Of course, you can come back to this podcast. It will be up there on YouTube, on the channel. So you can have a listen, watch it again, go through, get key ideas. You've got 3 weeks for this. Now, Robert, I know, is heading over to Europe fairly soon, part of this. So, Robert, you're going to have to get yours in earlier if you want to make sure that it's here ready for the without interfering with your holiday. So, 3 weeks' time, the Selective Colour Challenge. Okay, so you need to get your images to me before then. So around 28th will be the latest in the month if you can get it to me. And if anybody sends me a picture like this, I will deduct smug points from you. Okay. Throwing this up just as a stupid example to tell you everything that's wrong about selective colour. On the colour photo, what you see is this, red-headed woman at sunset, and it's beautiful. But it's not all about just her red hair. And when you do something like that, it shows you everything that just makes you wince, makes you want to scream, makes you want to throw your computer monitor out of the window, or at least it does to me. Okay? So, like I said, do anything like that, or like Status Quo's green guitar, where's that? Something like this. And I will be deducting smug points from you. So you really are going to have to think hard about this one. Now, next week, for anybody who's still about and hasn't run away screaming, we're going to get onto another technique, also suggested by Robert, but I'm not going to be doing a challenge on it, which is tilt shift. And the tilt shift effect is essentially where it's like an optical illusion where you take a scene, you change the blur levels on it such that it miniaturizes it. It can make a scene look like a toy model. I'm going to talk much more about that next week, but there's quite a bit of editing, or there's particular editing you need to do. It's not something you can generally do on your phone very easily. And so I decided that it wasn't worth setting a challenge for. But I'm going to talk about tilt shift because, again, you sometimes get tilt shift competitions and challenges on the likes of PhotoCrowd, ViewBug, Guru Shots and the like, and it's useful one to know how to do. So that's what it's going to be about next week. And the week after that will be, so 2 weeks time, will be a feedback session. Okay, so get your images in. Feedback, this is one of the few places on the internet where you can get genuine feedback on your own personal photo and get some help into kind of getting past where your sticking points are. So if you want to send me anything for feedback, then either kim@kimayres.co.uk, email me the image, ideally an unedited image as a version of it as well as your edited version, so that I can see how we might go about it differently, or put it in the Facebook group or the Flickr group, and likewise tell me the same thing. Now next week, the tilt shift, I don't think it's going to be a full hour long thing, so then I maybe got room for another feedback. If there's somebody there who actually has an image you think you'd like a bit of feedback in, send it to me. I might have a slot or two for next week. But failing that, in 2 weeks time I will definitely be having a feedback session, and in 3 weeks time it will be the spot colour or the selective colour challenge. And I'm really interested to see whether anybody's been listening or taking on board anything I've said. Will I actually be able to hand out any smug points, or will I just be deducting them all over the place? This will be a fun and a challenging one, I think. Right, okay, so I hope that all makes sense. Thank you ever so much to everybody who's turned up, left comments, put in thoughts and challenges. What else have we got here? Susan says, oh, thanks, Robert, with a horrified face. April says, proves an interesting challenge. Lisa says, very helpful indeed. Thank you. Marilyn's laughing at, I think it was the photo I put up of Robin with her red hair. Nick says, this is a challenging challenge. Thanks, Robert. And then Lisa says, Robert, making us all better photographers. Yeah. Okay. Oh, and Janet says, at least I figured out why I don't like my attempts. Excellent. Well then, that's good. That's exactly what. Hopefully now you've got a much better understanding of selective colour, what it is, when it works, and when it, most importantly, when it doesn't work. So I look forward to seeing you all next week, where I'll talk about tilt shift. Enjoy yourselves. See you then. Take care. Bye-bye.